Blog Talk Radio.
Everybody. I'm your host, Tarhaka, Amana El Bay, and we had some technical difficulties. We were supposed to be on at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but for some reason we're having these type of technical problems. What I think we're going to end up doing is just going to another platform and just request our points back from Blog Talk and get off of that. But in the meantime, we're on. And I'm going to go ahead and start this podcast. My guest, I'm not sure if she'll be in here with us this evening, but I'm going to go ahead and start and get this broadcast done because, of course, you know the show must go on. So hold on a minute. We're going to our commercials, and we'll be right back.
Once again, don't wait until it's too late. Hi, I'm Tarhaka. Get out of debt now. Use what you already have at your disposal. Try living in the private for the first time in your life. Go to TarhakaDebtElimination.org. What are you going to do when the economy collapses? What are you going to do when life in the public becomes so unbearable you don't think you can survive? There is something you can do now. Gain the benefit now of using the private banking and credit available to you. Avoid the loss of your hard-earned cash, which are debt notes. Go to TarhakaDebtElimination.org. Request my free report by filling out the Contact Us form, and I will rush the report to your email box. Act now. We still have a small amount of time. TarhakaDebtElimination.org.
Okay. Now, what we're dealing with here this evening is the United States versus the Moors and others underhandedly. And we're going to get down in what all of that means. But before we do, let's take a deep look at what we inside the United States is up against. I mean, we always hear the United States this and the United States that, but exactly what is it that we are dealing with here? I mean, what are we dealing with? What is the American condition? I mean, if to me, and I'm just using common sense, if I look at it this way, if this land uh, had a name before anybody came from somewhere else and called it something else, it still has its original name. That's the way I see it. What is an American? What is that? The indigenous people of this land never call themselves an American. Think about that. What you think? If you already got a name and somebody else come along and say, well, no, we're going to call it something else. So because you call it something else, you know, what makes it that? If it already had a name. If this was Turtle Island, where did the word the United States of America come on? My ancestors never, I've looked through our ancient records, we don't find anything about a United States of America. Never have. Let's take a look and see just what it is we're dealing with. Yeah, hold on a minute.
When you talk about the global south, you say our countries and our people as if you're from there. But you are a white American, after all. How do you reconcile that?
Well, I say our people, and I say our countries with regards to the Muslims and the Muslim lands, because I'm a Muslim. The history of the Muslims is my history. The Muslims are my family. That's my nation. The Ummah is my nation. Being American isn't a citizenship, it's a condition. And once you realize that you have that condition, you can spend the rest of your life trying to recover from it. It's like PTSD. You have American dissonance syndrome. And if you reach adulthood and you're still patriotic, you have the most profound case of Stockholm syndrome imaginable, because that society has deeply, deeply wronged you. I mean, when you say that someone is an American, basically you're saying that they were an abused child, psychologically abused, emotionally abused, mentally abused, educationally abused, and abused in every other kind of way. You've been lied to. You've been programmed with dysfunction. Your intellect has been systematically degraded. Your intellectual and your moral depth has been deliberately depleted to make you shallow. Cognitive dissonance has been inflicted on you your whole life. When you say American, you may just as well say damaged or victimized. You come from a country that has a fabricated national identity around a set of values and principles it never, ever applied anywhere. And in fact, more often than not, only ever applied the opposite. You live in a country that is demonstrably and obviously an authoritarian oligarchy, but which you have been taught since childhood is a democracy. No one living in America today has lived under any administration that wasn't guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity, committed both abroad and on domestic soil. And you've been brainwashed into thinking that your country stands for freedom and justice. But it's sick. Your education system is based on the Prussian system of indoctrination to turn every student into an obedient conformist slave to power. But you pretend that your society cherishes individuality. They've done nothing but damage you. Your schools have damaged you. Your media has damaged you. Your entertainment, your fake history, your myths, your government have done nothing but damage you all your life. That's what it means to be an American. And part of that damage, one aspect of that relentless damage, is in the question itself. You're a white American, you said. That matters to you. And you force it to matter to everyone in that country, even though it's an actually completely irrelevant characteristic. But because of the way that you have developed as a so-called society, you made it relevant, and you made it an issue, and you insist on keeping it an issue, so you can never escape. I don't even get to make it irrelevant to me because of the racial history in America. The whole context of race in the United States is a self-perpetuating death spiral that never dies. You assign value to all of these characteristics that are actually the least valuable characteristics that a human being can have. I mean, why race? Why skin color and not eye color or hair color? Why not height? It's incredibly arbitrary and stupid. But you did what you did. You drew the lines where you drew the lines, and you sentenced whole segments of humanity to imprisonment within these shallow, superficial, meaningless definitions, which then created a long, disgraceful history of actual experience that millions upon millions of people have suffered for no reason. So everyone who grew up in America eventually has to pursue self-rehabilitation, deprogramming, repair, debugging, detoxification, just to try to undo all the damage that being American has done to them, just so they can try to be normal. To be American is to suffer from a multitude of chronic diseases. It's a condition, not a nationality. It's a condition that every serious and sincere person has to try to cure themselves of over the course of their adulthood. But for most of them, it's a terminal condition. They'll never get over it. They'll die that way. And the sickest part of it is that this condition, you're actually pressured to preserve it, to uphold it, to cherish it, rather than to abolish it. Just like your question, as if I'm doing something wrong by not basing my identity and my worldview and my understanding on the dysfunctional, reductionist definition of white American. I mean, look, for most of the people who are categorized as Americans and who claim American history as their history, who feel some sort of, connection to the so-called founding fathers, Paul Revere and what have you, most of them only have even been over there for 2 or 3 generations. A smaller number than that's been over there for 4 generations, and very few, except for the descendants of slaves, have been over there since the beginning. The overwhelming majority of so-called Americans throughout most of American history, their families were somewhere else. It's the same with mine. The Irish side of my family came over during the potato famine, and the German side came over more recently than that. Yet, for some reason, we're all supposed to believe that we are all somehow connected to the history and the cultural heritage of that country, connected to people that we're not connected to in any way whatsoever, as if they are our ancestors. They even call them our forefathers. What do I have to do with George Washington? America isn't a tribe. America is nothing but a blood-soaked piece of land that a ragtag horde of Europeans fled to escape Europe. And then it became a land that people fled to escape American foreign policy that pillaged their own countries. And the people that have undeniably been so-called American longer than 99% of so-called Americans, the descendants of African slaves, are still treated like outsiders in a country that they've been in longer than most people. They've been there at least as long as the most pedigreed aristocratic so-called Mayflower families. I mean, just on seniority alone, they're supposed to be among the highest status citizens of that country. Their ancestors sacrificed more by force and for more generations than anyone living in America today. But until now, they have to fight just to be given equal rights and equal opportunities on par with people who just got off the boat 3 generations ago, 2 generations ago, 1 generation ago, or yesterday. Let's not even talk about the indigenous people, because of course let's not talk about them. They're never to be spoken of. But somehow we're all Americans. This abstract, fabricated identity that everyone is just supposed to believe in and unthinkingly adopt. Because if you didn't, you might actually notice how abstract and how fabricated it is. When it comes to some sort of national identity, country-based, geographically based identity, politically based identity, everyone accepts the idea that you can become integrated into a history that isn't yours. That, for instance, your family can immigrate to the U.S. in the 20th century or the 19th century or the 21st century and get citizenship, and then suddenly you have Abraham Lincoln in your family tree. Everyone accepts that as rational. But when it comes to Islam, for some reason you can't accept it. You can't accept that becoming Muslim connects you to the continuum of Muslim lives, stretching back all the way through the followers of all the prophets. You can't accept that becoming a Muslim makes you a member of a nation based on belief, even though belief in so-called American values and the American Constitution is supposedly what makes you, or what makes an immigrant an American. An Italian American, a Greek American, a Haitian American, everyone. Everyone recognizes and everyone accepts that those people immigrants feel a connection to and still derive their identity from their home country. But being a Muslim American isn't supposed to be like that. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Roosevelt, Kennedy, all of these men who never believed in or practiced the values that you're supposed to revere them for are supposed to mean more to you than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, more than the Sahaba, more than all of the Muslims throughout history all over the world who believed in and practiced and lived by the values that you as a Muslim also believe in, practice, and live by. No, sorry. I do not identify with the hypocrites of so-called American history who only ever use their preaching of values and principles as a way to mislead and misdirect the population and to distract them from the misery caused by the actual values that they practiced, the values of greed and selfishness and white supremacy and classism and materialism, exploitation, theft, murder, and plunder. I was raised in the country where those values were practiced but not preached, and where the values that were preached were not practiced. Just having been born there and just having been raised there does not oblige me to pretend otherwise. No, the history of Islam, the history of the Muslims, that's my history. And that includes Muslims from all parts of the world, Muslims of every race and color, ethnicity, and language. Those are my predecessors. Those are my ancestors. The Ummah is my nation and my national identity. And their history is my history. Being American is nothing but a legal status and an incidental fact of where my parents were when my mother gave birth to me. The rest of it is just damage and programming that I've had to overcome over the course of my life, and superficial characteristics like my language and, you know, certain cultural practices like the food and the manner of clothes that I'm used to, what I'm familiar with. It's like what I talked about before. Being a Westerner, being an American refers more to a mentality than a nationality. And separating that mentality from that nationality is the most crucial thing that any American can ever do for their own mental, spiritual, psychological, and emotional well-being. And I think that any American who does that, who genuinely does that, sincerely does that, well, I think that they will inevitably find that they feel that they have more in common with the people of the Global South than with mainstream America, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim. I personally believe that nothing can actually help you do that, deprogram yourself better than Islam. But even for those who don't embrace Islam, who just try to come to terms with the fallacy of Americanness and Americanism, well, I think that they'll realize how duped and how propagandized and how abused they've been their whole lives, and how the system over there is parasitically sucking every drop of blood, sweat, and tears out of their beings, and how all of their sacrifices and all of their hard work are being paid back in IOUs and counterfeit bills. I think they'll realize how they're being conned from the cradle to the grave, all for the enrichment and all for the benefit of people who don't and never did believe in the myths that they tell you about America, that they want you to believe. And I think that they'll start to identify with the oppressed and with the victimized all around the world. You know, just like how the super rich are a nation unto themselves, America's victims globally should be a nation unto themselves too. America's victims, foreign and domestic. And they should feel and they should build solidarity with one another, because we all have more in common with each other than we have with that predator nation that's been preying on all of us. You know, it's the deception that bothers me. The deception is cruel. I mean, from the moment they wrote the words, "We the people," leaders in the United States have relentlessly sought ways to subvert democracy in America. They've sought ways for outwitting their own founding documents for over 200 years. Even in the Constitution itself, you know, it provides for elections, and then it imposes mechanisms that render those elections pointless. The separation of powers, you know, the checks and balance system. Well, whose power is being checked? Elected power, the power of the elected representatives of the electorate. Nobody checks the Supreme Court, for example. That's really the supreme branch of the U.S. government, the Supreme Court. And those are lifetime positions. The framers of the Constitution seem to be primarily dedicated to creating a system that would ensure maximum inefficiency, because the Founding Fathers were, as we know, deeply suspicious of government itself. I mean, think about it. No taxation without representation. That was the slogan. Well, that could go a different way. No representation, no taxation. If you asked Americans today, if you asked most Americans today, which would you rather have, your whole paycheck or your senator? What do you think they would choose? Which do you think they would feel is more useful to them, their full salary or their congressperson? Their congressperson who is completely subservient to his or her campaign donors and to whatever corporate sector they want to enter once they leave office. Their congressperson who listens and obeys lobbyists more than they'll ever listen to their constituents. I mean, the entire political platform for any candidate is calculatedly drafted to serve the interests of whatever business sector they're going to target for campaign funding. That's why they put the policies that they do or the proposals that they do. Elections in the U.S. are like talent shows. Just like those shows where the audience votes for whoever sings the best, so that then they'll win a recording contract or something like that with a major producer. It's the same thing. You elect a politician, whoever sings the best, so that then that politician can win lucrative deals with business. It's got nothing to do with your interests. You pay a higher percentage of taxes, in fact, than corporations, but corporations have a higher degree of representation than you do. I mean, according to what's called the Citizens United decision, that was in 2010, corporations have personhood status under the law, except it's a super personhood status because they're larger than life. Corporations have the right to free speech under this ruling, and that speech includes political campaign funding. So literally money talks. The rule says that it would be an unfair restriction on corporations' right to freedom of speech to limit how much money they can spend to get whatever they want from politicians. Freedom and democracy, you see? They come up with every possible way to shut you out. And who do you suppose made that Citizens United decision? Well, it was the Supreme Court. I mean, look at education, at higher education in the United States. A functioning democracy requires an informed and educated public. That's what Thomas Jefferson said. He said that a well-informed citizenry is the best defense against tyranny. So what can you deduce might be the objective when you make education prohibitively expensive? When you set up a system to restrict access to education for the citizenry and make it only accessible for the rich. Well, that's a recipe for tyranny according to one of your own founding fathers, but that's what you're doing. I mean, my mother was still paying off her student loans when she was in her 70s. And you keep finding new ways to discourage people from going to university. It's not enough that you expect an 18 or 20-year-old to come up with more money than it takes to buy a house just to be able to get a degree. That's not enough. So you have to start creating useless degrees, useless so-called disciplines, degrees in electronic feminist activism, degrees in navel gazing, so that you can then start to say, well, university is really pointless. As if there aren't still degrees available in the sciences, in law, in business, in history, in the fundamental disciplines. You make people think that university is all just a joke. You set up all of these absurd degree programs to make university look like it's pointless. So why bother? Everyone thinks just why bother? Why should I go into debt just to get a useless degree? Meanwhile, the children of the elite are still going to university because they're the ones who are on track to be the managers of society. They're on track to rule you. I mean, why do you think that they didn't allow slaves to learn to read in the South? The same reason that they don't want you to be educated. Because you're serfs. The U.S. is looking to revive domestic manufacturing. They want to bring back offshore factory jobs back to the U.S. They want you to be on an assembly line. They don't want you to have a lot of big ambitions about your future. They don't want you to have the intellectual tools for self-sufficiency or critical thought so that you can actually see and recognize and understand what your society really is. Everything about the society is calculated to marginalize the population. And one of the main instruments that they use to marginalize the population is the constant repetition about how free and how democratic it is. It's quite telling that for any other country in the world, if you want to learn about it, if you want to understand it, if you want to really know that society, you have to go there. You have to live there. You have to mix with the people. You have to experience it. But with America, it's different. People outside of the U.S. understand it and know it far better than Americans do. And if Americans want to actually learn about and understand their country, they would have to leave the U.S. They would have to go outside the U.S. to educate themselves about it. You would have to go outside of the U.S. to learn what America really is. Thomas Jefferson's defense against tyranny has been and is being systematically repressed in the United States. So you tell me what kind of a system that means it is. You know, for security reasons, the government gets to watch you online. They get to know everything that you're doing. But for the same security reasons, you're not allowed to watch them online. You're not allowed to know what they're doing. All the CCTV cameras are pointed at you. All the surveillance systems are pointed at you. Meanwhile, your so-called public servants have more privacy than you do. What kind of a servant has more privacy and more rights than their supervisor? I mean, isn't that supposed to be the relationship? Politicians and bureaucrats, state workers, they're public servants, right? But can you monitor what Senator so-and-so is doing on the internet? Can you listen in when Congressman such and such meets with his donors, meets with his financiers, his funders, with businessmen? I mean, what's on Joe Biden's browser history? He can find out what's on yours. Why can't you know what's on his? And more importantly, the real power players are completely off the radar. The CEOs, the shareholders, the oligarchs, the people who have by far the most power over the conditions of everyday life for people in America and around the world, the people who have the most power over government policy, they're not even acknowledged as having that power. The real controllers of the society are completely obscured and unscrutinized and unaccountable, except to each other. That's the system. It just self-identifies as democratic.
Okay, there you have it. Now, at this point, I would like to ask you, what part of this here, or what he said, is incorrect or wrong? Listen at it again if you have to, but let's look at a lion in the face, because all too often we have people look at a lion dead in the face, but they want to turn around and say, well, that's not a lion, that's a rabbit. We want to water it down a little bit. We want to look at it, but we want to go off on the side and kind of soften it up a little bit. We don't want to look at a lion dead in the face and call him a lion. We are afraid of that. I mean, you go out, so think about it for a minute. You go out and you vote for your state senator, your congressman, your president of the United States, and these people are there to serve you. They are your servants. You follow me? Okay. Well, if that's the case, then what I think I'll do is I'll just go and get him a car and find out where the state senator of the state of Florida is located, and I'll go over to his house and get a chance to meet him and see how he's doing, let him know that I voted him into office to serve me, and to see if I'll be welcome to come in his home, or if I'll be arrested for even showing up in his neighborhood. But we don't want to look at it like that. Well, we can't. We can't do that. That's even though I'm looking in the face of a lion, it possibly could be a rabbit. We don't want to look at it dead on. But anyway, moving right along. Even when they came out with the pandemic, COVID-19, it was, it's a pandemic, and you got to put on a mask, and you got to be 6 foot apart, and all the small mom and pop small businesses, well, you got to shut down, and the only thing could be open is the big major companies like Big Lots, Walmart and all that, everybody walking around and just doing it. But you, small business that makes the country go round, y'all got to shut down. Even told the church, you have to shut down. If you don't shut down, we'll come in there and arrest you. And if I'm not mistaken, I think a pastor or two was arrested. And then everybody went online. You know, the lion I was telling you about. But anyway, I was surfing the net, and one lady came on there. She said she went to the clinic to be tested for the virus, so-called virus, pandemic. I'll tell you what that is in a minute. She said she walked in there. The place was crowded, but she put her name on the list. And I think she may have put her email on there. And she said it was taking so long. She had other business to take care of. She never did get a chance to see anyone because the place was packed. So she decided to just turn around and walk out. But she got an email the next day telling her that she tested positive for a virus. Okay, wait a minute, something is wrong. I called New York, I called Detroit, I called Chicago, I called Texas, and I called Los Angeles. Oh, and I called Miami. I said, now this is what I want you to do. I said, I want each one of y'all to contact your funeral home in the city where you are and get a hold to the funeral director and ask him, since the pandemic has hit, has your business increased? And you call me back and let me know what he said. And I also want you, when you go back to regular day, just, you know, you're on the road, you're driving around or what have you, pass by funeral home and look in there, because according to what we're getting from the news media, the cemetery should be full of people. They're talking about all these people dying and all over here, but I noticed that I went past the cemetery down here where I am at least 7 different times on 7 different days. Nobody's there. No rescue units running up and down the street 24 hours a day. Nobody dropping dead on the street. Nobody in the hospital suffering from a pandemic. No, nothing. I mean, it was all, you know, that line was something else this time. It was all on the media being broadcast to you about a pandemic. Now, if you want to see a pandemic, type into your browser on Google and just type in the Black Death of Europe, and you will see what a pandemic looks like. But this thing that we just had around here, this was a bunch of crap. This was just something somebody said. Went in the grocery store. It's amazing how people react to stuff instead of doing research and actually thinking. I go in the grocery store, it's packed. People in the grocery store that ain't never been in that store, I ain't never seen them in that store. I mean, they got baskets. Some of them got 2 baskets. Get the canned goods. Get the pork chops. Get the pork ribs. Get the barbecue sauce. I went over to the fruit and vegetable section because that's what I go in there and get. And sometimes. But there's nobody there but me. And I'm just standing over there. I'm like, well, when is somebody going to try to come over here and try to get something over here? No. We getting what we have been led to believe is food. Amazing. Incredible. I mean, this was the greatest show. Then you go into Walmart, you got people in line standing 6 feet apart. And the scientists will tell you when an individual sneezes to go further than 6 feet. So who told you that? Who told you that you needed to be 6 foot apart? Who told you you needed to put on a mask and inhale and exhale your own breath? It's going right back down your mouth and your nostrils and stuff. there was a reason why when we were created, we wasn't given a mask. We was able to breathe fresh air. There's a reason for that. But because somebody told you something, you acted without investigation. Amazing. And you still got people today, even though the same people that told you that have come back and said, okay, now the virus is officially over. The pandemic is, we don't cut it off. The pandemic is over. But you still got people in certain instances, you see them in certain places, if they pay close attention, they're still wearing a mask. They still scared about something somebody told them, and they have yet to do an investigation on anything. Sometimes I stand on amazed wonderment, and I wonder, why were you given a brain? For what? Don't you know you're supposed to use it? The same thing goes on a belief. People are under the impression that when you believe in something, you're educated. No, you just believe in something. You become educated when you start thinking and you start doing some research on some stuff and coming to some conclusion, so you're able to have something to put on the table. This stuff is incredible. But you're surrounded by these kind of people. And you ask the average one that looks like me, on average, what is your nationality? Well, I'm African American. Okay, what's that? You have no what my nationality. That's my nationality. Well, what is it that you know for a fact about an African American? Give me the facts. Don't tell me nothing what you've been believing in a long time, or what somebody told you, or what everybody else is doing. I just want to know what you know for a fact about you being an African American. What is that? See, that's why I don't even like to talk to you, because, see, you need to keep it real. Yeah, real dumb. But anyway, let's move on. We're going to go to another commercial. I'll be right back. Yeah, hold on a minute.
All right, everybody. Don't forget, the greatest focal point in your life is when preparedness and opportunity meet. Hello, I'm Tarhaka Amana El Bay. I want to give a shout out to all the brothers and sisters across the country that got our secure party and credit information. It was now officially operating in the private. Keep in mind, you can access the direct treasury account, private banking, knowing the difference between public and private and being able to function correctly. Do that OID. Learn about your 1099s. You can do a whole lot of stuff once you have the knowledge to do so. Go to TarhakaDebtElimination.org. That's TarhakaDebtElimination.org. Fill out the Contact Us form. Send it to me and I'll send you my free report. TarhakaDebtElimination.org.
Okay, we're back. Now I know the last time I was on by myself, I told you we was going to talk about this freedom of right to travel. So let me get down in that before I get down in this veteran stuff, because we got this, we got a situation here, and once again, we don't want to face that lion. We want to look at him and we want to call him a rabbit. But anyway, what you have to do in a situation like that, you have to understand that everything in America operates under continuous series contracts under what's called contract law. So with these kind of contracts, if you got a driver's license and you are not driving commercially, now if you're driving a city bus, a school bus, handicap van, train, policeman, a fireman, with all this is in commerce. You need a driver's license. But if you were just traveling along, you got your vehicle, you're not an Uber driver, you just going to the store or going across town or just going to ride up to the bank and take care of a little business, or you're going to ride over to the washing mat, wash clothes, you don't have a washer and dryer, or you were broke down. But you're not acting in commerce. So what we have to do, if you have this instrument in your possession, you need to get rid of the contract. You need to take that, a driver's license, put your affidavit together, and make sure you take that instrument, make a copy of it, take that instrument and attach it to the affidavit, and sit it there, put it in all your Supreme Court rulings on your right to do what you're doing, you're traveling, and request a response from these people to let them know that if you are doing something incorrect, please let me know and sign the paper that the letter that you're sending me, so I know that it is you that telling me that I'm doing something wrong, or I'm breaking a law of some kind. Give them back the license plate. Maybe a good idea if you just go ahead, and what I did was created my own license plate, and I sent them a copy of that, sent them a copy of the manufacturer of the vehicle itself, which was not made in the United States of America. And then I signed that vehicle to a trust as a gift, which it was. And then I went over there to the DMV, and I gave them their tag back. They didn't want to take the tag. I just left it on the counter. But anyway, take your vehicle and deregister that vehicle from the state database, and make sure that the governor's got a copy of what you're doing. Make sure the sheriff's department got a copy, and make sure you got clauses in place, and put them on notice that you, in the event that your right to travel has been infringed, you prepared to sue them and give them all your reasons where you'll be able to do that. You just put that in writing, sign and notarize stamp, and send it on off. That's how you go about doing it. Okay? So, see, if you have a right to do something, you don't want nobody to come along and say, well, you know, if you exercise this right, well, you breaking the law. Okay, what law? I mean, if you behind me, you cut on your light, first of all, you're declaring an emergency. And if there's no injured party, well, you stopping me, you committed a felony. And if you're married and your wife is just like a getaway driver for a bank robber, she's an accessory to your criminal act, and she can be sued too. But anyway, this information comes along with the stuff that we do, our secure party and credit information that comes along with that. But nevertheless, let's talk about your property taxes. I told you all that's illegal. They got you mislabeled down there, got you listed as having real property. Now what's that? What is a real property? Look it up in your law books and find out what it is. That's how they got you classified. Down here where I'm in Florida, private property is exempt from taxation. Well, if everybody knew that, then we wouldn't be able to line our pockets downtown and rob you every year. We want you to believe that what we are doing is totally legitimate. And a lot of people go along with it. Why? Because they refuse to do any research and any investigation on anything. They just go along with stuff without investigating, asking questions. And the same thing happens when you go to the church. Do you know that when you go to the door of the church, you're supposed to stop thinking at the door? When you walk through that door, you are supposed to believe. Because if you get up in there and you start thinking, a thinking man going to start asking questions if you hear something that don't sound right. And if you start doing that, then we got to put you out of the building, man. Because you came up in here thinking, this ain't for people who think, this is just for people who believe. When you come in here doing no thinking, we're going to think for you. The fact that you have a brain, go ahead and cut it off, and our brains is on, and we'll tell you what to do and what not to do and what to believe and what not to believe. That's amazing, isn't it? Incredible. Now, when it came to the pandemic, the government, so-called government of the United States, told the church to shut down. If you don't shut down, we'll start locking folks up. Well, hey, that was easy, man. I mean, all these years you had the church. All you had to, where was Jesus? Where he was then? All you had to do was say, hey, Jesus, go ahead and take care of this joker, man. We ain't finna close down your house. But you've been telling people for years, this is the house of the Lord. Yeah, but anyway, you closed your doors and you went online and did this, that, and the other. Then after they said, well, the pandemic goes, oh, we can open back up the church and we can go back to doing the same thing that we was doing the first time. Amazing. Like I say, I'd be in amazed wonderment looking at people go through the whole day doing everything that they could possibly do but thank you. Okay, that's too much a word. I ain't used to this. I rather just believe. I'm gonna just wait on something to happen and see what happened and this, that, and the third. But nevertheless, let's get down because I have heard some tidings about the vets because I try to figure that one out as well, where you let somebody talk you into going to another country to kill somebody, and you don't have all the details. You don't know nothing about the people you killing, but you got the little quick crash course in it. They ain't never done nothing to you. They don't even know you exist. But yet you over there trying to kill somebody on behalf of the people that sent you. And after you go and do that, and you come back all tore up, and legs bombed off, arms blew up, you got a disease, you got an epidemic in you, you got all this kind of crazy, and when you get back over here, the people will tell you, well, look, we can't help you. You got to get a line, we got to pass the legislation, we got to get funding, we got to see what the legislation said about helping you, and this, that, and the third. Isn't that amazing? And then we got discrimination going on in the Veterans Administration. Now, the veterans are the people that went over there and they fought in the Korean War, they fought in World War I, fought in World War II, fought in Vietnam and Afghanistan and all these places, and they come back blown to pieces and all this right here. And then you're going to be discriminated against? Don't you think something is wrong? Don't you think there's something that you need to be doing different? Don't you think? How about that? Isn't that something? Man, to me, that is cold-blooded. For you to let somebody talk you into doing something like that, and then they give you their butt to kiss. How about that? Hold on
President
a minute.
Biden's pick to head the Department of Veterans Affairs is on the verge of confirmation after the Senate committee in charge voted to advance Dennis McDonough's nomination yesterday. One of the challenges the presumptive secretary will face includes widespread racism, which has troubled the department for decades. A survey conducted in August by the VA union found that 3/4 of employees say that they've encountered racially charged actions in the workplace. A recent New York Times opinion piece chronicled the issues not only under the Trump administration, but also the history of discrimination at the VA. And Jasper Craven is the reporter behind that piece. So, Jasper, thank you so much for joining us. This is your thing. This is your area that you cover. Can you just help us understand sort of the breadth of the problem here at the VA? Because we're talking, to me, I see it sort of there's two tracks here. There's racism as it affects employees of the VA, and then racism as it affects patients of the VA. Break it down for us.
Well, for a long time, really since the Department of Veterans Affairs was founded, Black veterans have been disproportionately shut out of benefits. I mean, the VA is really sort of the most progressive agency in government in that it provides free health care, it provides free college through the GI Bill, it provides home loans, it provides unemployment insurance, and yet, even though blacks have long fought for this country, dating back to the Civil War, I mean, blacks were really critical in winning the Civil War. They have been shut out of these benefits disproportionately, and so they have not been able to access some of these critical economic tools to move up and to succeed in this country.
And then there are employees, and you sort of chronicle that in your article, employees who say that they've been the victims of discrimination, that they've found it difficult to get promotions or found themselves often overlooked, that they've heard talk in the hallways that was just outright overtly racism. That's another problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, a third of VA employees are veterans of color themselves. But yeah, I've spoken now to VA employees across the country, and this is not, you know, confined to any one facility, any one region of the country. But there are a series of shocking anecdotes of VA employees of color being referred to as monkeys, as Aunt Jemima. There was a black veteran and VA employee in Massachusetts who, after recently blowing the whistle on some malfeasance, found a noose at his desk and a note that says, "Go home or die." So these are pretty shocking incidents. And then there's sort of the more systemic problem, you know, pretty solid survey data and hiring and promotion data that shows that black employees are, you know, again, not moving up. They're not moving into management positions. They're being targeted for firings and demotions more than white employees. And so, you know, overall, the system really is living in another age, and Trump really sort of inflamed that issue.
Okay, let us get into that, because the sort of an overhaul of Veterans Affairs was one area that former President Trump sort of checkmarked off his list as a success. You know, we talked, in the introduction, we talked about the survey that was done in August and how it revealed how so many employees and patients felt that they had witnessed or experienced, you know, racism within the VA. And then shortly after the results come out, the president decides to stop all racial sensitivity training, calling it sort of an indoctrination of government workers. Now, that was across the board, but it certainly must have had an impact when it came to Veterans Affairs. But can you talk about sort of the fallout of the Trump administration? Did they make things better or worse, or do anything at all to help this particular issue?
I would say that more than in any other agency, the Trump officials really inflamed the issue. I mean, this is pretty blatant stuff. The former head of the VA, a man named Robert Wilkie, is a former member of a neo-Confederate group called the Sons of Confederate Veterans. He's a former staffer for segregationist Senator Jesse Helms. One of his deputies had in his VA office a painting of the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. So when you have a leadership group like that, you know, you're not going to see progressive, active engagement with this issue. And as you noted, yes, the Trump administration kneecapped equal opportunity trainings across government, but there were very specific acts here that cracked down on black employees. I mean, black employees in the VA often are in lower level but critical jobs like housekeepers, nurses. Trump passed executive orders to make it easier to fire those people, and thousands of them were fired or demoted or suspended. There were diversity trainings that some officials tried to call inside the VA to deal with these issues that were then canceled inexplicably. And so I think that, you know, Trump really did a number on the department. Certainly these issues existed before him, but you know, what I've heard from staff across the country is just that they are really feeling dejected and have lost faith in this agency they once joined in, you know, an effort to help those who've served.
And you pointed this out a little bit earlier that it wasn't ushered in with the Trump administration. This is an ongoing problem with the VA since essentially the birth of the VA, right? Whether it's housing discrimination, as you point out, various services. There's an example in your article where one veteran is talking about, that he has seen, white veterans get approved for PTSD when they've never seen any sort of actual military action versus black veterans, appealing for some sort of coverage for their mental health issues and not being approved for it. It runs deep. So then the question is, how do you correct this? We've got a new administration. Where do we go from here? What do you see as kind of the big shifts that need to happen to really make the VA a service that supports the men and women who have risked their lives for our country?
Absolutely. Well, I think it starts with leadership. And it will be very interesting to see what Dennis McDonough does if he's confirmed, which I believe will happen. I mean, Robert Wilkie, Trump's VA secretary, had a large leadership team that was virtually all white. Dennis McDonough needs to change that. Dennis McDonough needs to bring in people who look like the military. I mean, the military is very quickly diversifying, and they need to be welcomed into the department. And really what needs to happen is the department needs to do a deep analysis of how it provides benefits, on how it provides health care. It needs to look at whether there are significant racial health disparities. And once it identifies those problems, it needs to fix them. It needs to, set up programs, revive trainings that Trump got rid of, and really try and ensure that the VA becomes this vital economic and health tool for those who've served.
Spot on. Jasper Craven, great talking to you. Great article. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Okay, we're back. All right, we're back, everybody. All right, so now we know about the discrimination going on within the Veterans Administration, because when people go overseas into other countries, and of course, America got soldiers all over everywhere, bases all over everywhere, and they get injured or harmed, or they get some chemical poisoning, arm blowed off, leg blowed off, blowed half in two, SPPDTS, what you call that stuff? Anyway, they come back to America, and America just, well, hold on a minute now, we're going to have to, we're going to have to get back with you in a couple of months to see if we can squeeze out some benefits for you. Appreciate your service, and man, you need to. They got artificial legs and arms now. You get some of that, and but we got to work on getting you some funding for that. But now we dealt with the so-called people of color. What's going on with white folks? Let's see if they, if see, none of this might not get on them. But let's see.
The VA has continued to let me down. Fuck.
I am sick to death of seeing how often we fail the veterans in this country who have sacrificed so much for all of us. All that this gentleman wants is continuity of care with his mental health, and the VA has let him down repeatedly over the last 6 years. And now this is where he's at, man, and there's so many politicians on both sides that are voting against VA benefits. This video was going to go so different. I was going to read down a list of all of the politicians that have recently voted against VA benefits. Then I saw how many of them, and I realized that I wouldn't be able to fit it into one video. We ask our soldiers for so much, and it's like our country just discards them when they're done with them. Shame on our government, shame on the VA, shame on a system that has deprioritized our heroes. It makes me sick, and it makes me ashamed of this country.
Okay, there you have it. Now, why? Why is stuff like this happening? Why is there discrimination? Why do someone go someplace because they believe in their patriotism and they are willing to take a chance on their lives because they are fighting for their country, because they got families here, family members, sisters, brothers, children, grandmama, uncle, daddy, granddaddy, all these people. So they go out and then they get injured or harmed, and the Veterans Administration is not willing to do anything to help them. It takes them almost a lifetime to get any kind of help. It should be automatic, but that's not the case. So let's take a look at something, and after that we're going to take a little quick break and we're going to be right back. But y'all hold on a minute. I want you to take a look at something.
It's a plutocracy. It's ruled by the rich, of the rich, by the rich, and for the rich. Democracy in America is just a smokescreen. It's a charade that they perform every election cycle just to pacify you. I mean, look at the reality. For roughly the first 100 years of American so-called democracy, only white male property owners could vote. This gradually expanded to include all white males and then theoretically black males, but not in practice, in theory. Eventually they had to grant the vote to women and Native Americans. Imagine that. The indigenous people of that land were the last to be given the right to vote in that land. As the franchise of voting expanded to include those who were not white male property owners, the real power moved further and further away from the democratic process. They dangled the right to vote in front of you to make you think that you're a participant in power. But they kept the real power in the hands of the wealthy elite, more and more so over the years. As the right to vote expanded, the relevance of the vote contracted. I said no one ever intended for power to be in the hands of the people, and it never...
Okay. That's something to think about. We'll take a little quick break and we'll be right back. Hold on. Okay, we just took a little quick break, and now we're back. Now, we're still talking about this veterans thing. What is going on with the medical profession and the vets, and is the discrimination thing going on with the Veterans Administration? And, of course, we just dealt with that. And why are veterans homeless in America? Now, just think about that now. Hold on now. Hold for a minute now. Do you mean to tell me that we got people who would leave this soil and go to a foreign land and fight for this land, and when they come back, they end up homeless and nothing is done? Hey, wait a minute, man. When are we going to look at the lion in the face and call him a lion? Stop calling him a rabbit. He's not a rabbit. See, you look at a lion in the face and call him a rabbit. You call him a rabbit all day long until he bites you. Then you start calling him a lion. But let's take a look at this here homeless thing, and then when we get back, we're going to get down in there because we was talking about the pandemic and stuff, and how they was using, in my opinion, fake news, steady broadcasting to you. And all you had to do was look up, because we got planes flying across the sky all over every day, morning and night, spreading chemtrails and dropping this aluminum, all this stuff down in your head, and that. If your immune system is suppressed, then you will have symptoms that they can say and attribute to, oh, you got a coronavirus. Amazing. But anyway, we're going to get back to that. But let's take a look and see what's going on with these vets and this homelessness.
On any given night, there are more than 65,000 homeless people living in Los Angeles. There is not enough affordable housing, and even when there is, some people struggle to get into those units, including veterans on disability. Stephanie Sy looks at some of the obstacles leading to LA's homeless population, the largest in the country.
On the sprawling 388-acre campus of the West Los Angeles VA, dotted with palm trees, a construction boom is underway. 3 new buildings have gone up this year to provide qualified veterans low-income housing. 63-year-old Jack Vicente has been settled in his gleaming new studio apartment for a month. The Army vet was working as a bellman at a hotel when he suffered a back injury and was let go from his job.
And that's what led to me being pretty much homeless for the next 4 or 5 months until I was able to go to the VA, and the VA helped me get into a lovely, secure place like this. In my opinion, the promise that they made when I joined up, they're really keeping their word now.
But there are other veterans who feel the opposite.
Where are you living now?
Right there.
36-year-old LaVon Johnson, an Army veteran, lives right outside the VA campus in a tent.
You've been back here for about, what, a week and a half?
About that.
He was living in one of these tiny shelters on the VA campus, but he says it caught fire and he was removed from the temporary housing program. Johnson has been chronically homeless for more than a decade. Even as new apartment buildings go up on the VA campus, he is locked out.
You applied to stay at one of these buildings, and you were rejected.
Yes.
Why?
My annual yearly income was too much, but $200.
Johnson's income is actually his monthly disability check. While deployed in Iraq with the 1st Cavalry Division, he says his unit was hit by a rocket.
I get shot back, and I landed on my feet, then I fell over. I remember falling over, hitting my head, and it just blanked after that.
Due to a diagnosis of serious mental illness, he receives full compensation of over $4,000 a month. So you would think that would be enough to rent an apartment here?
Not in California. Plus I have bills and other debts I have to pay off every month too. So like all my money is gone. I don't have anything for myself for the month. You know, so it's just a vicious cycle.
Johnson falls into a category of veterans who stand on a so-called benefits cliff. He gets so much in disability compensation that other essentials like housing fall off. It's estimated 8,000 homeless veterans around the country may lose out on low-income housing opportunities because their benefits put them over income caps.
This particular building has very strict eligibility criteria.
We met Keith Harris, who oversees the VA's efforts to house homeless veterans in LA in one of the shiny new apartments on campus. A veteran has to be at least 62 and make under $42,000 a year to qualify to live in this building.
We know what the solutions are. Either we get eligibility caps raised so that veterans who are receiving VA benefits can qualify, or we stop counting VA benefits as income.
Harris says another problem is that other housing lies in parts of LA where many unhoused vets don't want to live, so they don't use the affordable housing vouchers that are available to them.
There are close to 50 buildings. There are a couple hundred vacancies in those buildings.
Why are there vacancies?
It's maddening. I want to acknowledge it's very frustrating because you've got thousands of homeless veterans, you've got hundreds of vacant units, you've got thousands of unused vouchers. The biggest problem in filling those is one of location. Many of those are far away from the medical center.
And the medical center is located on the west side of Los Angeles, where the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is more than $3,000 a month. A housing voucher or disability check doesn't go far here.
There simply are not enough units for everybody who needs one, much less could afford one.
As challenging as it is to build affordable housing on the VA campus, it's even more onerous everywhere else in Los Angeles. Between historically discriminatory zoning laws and community resistance, it's an uphill battle. Few know that better than Dora Leong Gallo, the head of a community of friends, which has been providing housing for people with mental health disorders for 35 years. Just like some veterans with disabilities, some people with serious mental illnesses in the general population benefit from having support services where they live. A quarter of LA's homeless population has these disorders.
The concept was to build apartment communities where people had a lease and that there would be services on site in the buildings to help sure that people had the services they need to live independently.
Leong Gallo walks us through the lengthy process of developing what's called permanent supportive housing.
First thing we have to do is find property.
That's also the first roadblock.
Because we're kind of restricted in where we can build apartment buildings, it drives the cost higher as well, because we're all competing for the same limited land.
According to one study, more than 70% of residential areas in the LA area are zoned for single-family homes, a planning policy that has roots in racial discrimination.
At the same time, simultaneously, we're looking for financing.
That's the next roadblock. A nonprofit has to compete for funding from various sources, all with different requirements, restrictions, and timelines.
And along the same time, we are also meeting with the community.
And that, many housing developers say, is one of the biggest roadblocks. Even while Californians have approved measures to increase funding to address homelessness, not in my backyard attitudes have blocked or delayed many projects.
When you don't allow this type of housing to be built, then people are forced to live further away. People are forced to live in their cars.
70-year-old Wallace Richardson had been living out of his truck for more than a year when he was linked up with one of the 50 buildings developed by a community of friends. He's been in his Silver Lake apartment for more than a decade. One of his last jobs was with AmeriCorps.
During the time that I was an outreach worker, you know, I got a first-hand look at myself. I thought that I was mentally sane, but I wasn't. You know, I had issues, you know, and the issues I had was coming up from being an abused child.
What has it been like to have this stable housing for the last 10 years?
It has made all the difference in the world. In fact, it has saved my life because I was on a downhill spiral.
Back near the VA campus, LaVon Johnson is still waiting for his life jacket, and he's losing his patience.
I can't sit still knowing that people are like me, getting screwed over blatantly by them.
He's part of a recent lawsuit that accuses the VA of not providing enough affordable housing to the neediest veterans. The plaintiffs demand 3,500 permanent supportive units on or near the VA campus. My understanding is there are lawsuits going back to 2011 saying, why isn't the VA doing more to house homeless veterans here? Why now? Why just in the last couple of years?
The draft master plan was put into place as part of resolving the first lawsuit, and it had a very aggressive timeline on the units that would be built. Turned out very unrealistically so.
The VA realized recently that if sites were prepared ahead of time for developers, they could speed up the process. They've already spent $70 million on things like leveling land and adding underground utilities to make sites build ready.
That's why it looks like a rush. This is the way it should have been happening all along.
The agency is aiming to complete 1,200 units by 2030. Whether one of those units is in LaVon Johnson's future remains in doubt. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Stephanie Tsai in Los Angeles.
Okay, now y'all. Let's think about that for a minute. Based on the research that I got last year, I found out that we have more vacant houses, apartments, and properties in the United States than we have homeless people. Did you know that? So what's going on with this particular lie here? Think about that for a minute. I mean, then, when it was it this year or last year, the President of the United States gave Ukraine over $7.2 trillion. Wait a minute. How you going to have a house that you in on fire when you going to go outside that burning house, draw up a bucket of water, go next door and throw it on the house next door that ain't on fire? What in the heck is this? What is this? What are we dealing with here? What are we dealing with, y'all?
Well, there is no right wing or left wing in the United States politically. There's the right lane and the left lane on the same one-way road. But both of those lanes and that same road all go to the same destination. Maybe there's a fast lane and a slow lane, but they both go to the same place. And that place is certainly not your liberation or your freedom or justice. So what you need to be is on a different road. If you want to reach that destination, the destination of freedom and liberation and justice, you need to be on a different road. But I'm afraid at this point, socially, politically, economically, and every other kind of way, culturally, the Rubicon is already in your rearview mirror, and that road that you're on has no U-turns.
Boy, now that was heavy. Those little few words right there is heavy. We got the Republicans, and then on the other side, we got Democrats. But this guy say, hey, both of them is the same road. You got to get on a different road. And what I try to do is teach the people how to get out in public, get into private, take full responsibility for yourself, use what you got to change your life. Now, there are things available to you that you can access. I took full control of the corporate fiction, took all of its security interests, and mastered the art of creating my own contracts and document stuff. I'll show you how to do the same thing. And so when something arises, I'm able to defend myself because I do the research, get knowledge and stuff, and I'm working now on the original calendar that goes all the way back to creation. And I found out when the new year begins. Not only did I find out when it begins, I found out how and what do you do, or what do you see in order for you to know for a fact that it is the beginning of a new year. Now, this is the original calendar now. I also found out how many days are there in a week and what is the first day of the week. Found that out. Then we deal with how do you tell one day from another. When does one day end and another day begin? Got that information. And we're working on it, and we're going to put this information out. And it's not something that you haven't heard before, but what we want to do is make it real in your life so that you can actually take it and use it. Because it is amazing to me with what we got going on in the United States today with this Gregorian calendar. January 1st, you out there, it's freezing cold, but you got a guy coming along with a big old overcoat on, and he said, Happy New Year. Ain't nothing happens about what's going on right here. It's 28 degrees, man. Come on, find something else to tell me. Where you headed? Well, I'm going to the bar to get some liquor, man. I can warm up. Something wrong with the whole thing. But anyway, let's take a look at something else. But first, I'm going to take a little quick break, and when I come back, then we're going to start dealing with this stuff about this pandemic and the fake news and all that stuff happening, because we're looking for answers about our condition and the condition that we are in. And so I'm going to go here, and when I come back, then we'll get down in some of that stuff there, okay? All right. Let's see what we got. Hold on a minute. And let's see. Is it here, there, where we at? Let me find this thing here. Okay, is that it right there? No, that's not it. We done dealt with that. But nevertheless, we'll be right back. Y'all hold on a minute.
Hit it! Na 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 na. Here come the Astepa, I'm the lyrical gangster. Big up the crew in the area. Still love you like that. No, we don't die. Yes, we multiply. Anyone press will hear the fat lady sing. Act like you know, Rico. I know what Bo don't know. Touch them up and go. Oh, ching-ching-ching. Here come the Astepa. I'm the lyrical gangster. Excuse me, Mr. Officer. Still love you like that. Extraordinary. Juice like a strawberry. Money to burn, baby, all of the time. Cause the fit is me. Fit to cut the shit. Come juggle with me. Every time. Come the Astepa. I'm the lyrical gangster. Dial emergency number. Still love you like that. Na 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 na. So we do it, man. Na 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 na. Hey, sound like a jackrabbit, finish in front of me. I'm the 90s Jack, that's it, understand? I'm the daddy of the Mac, daddy is a lasting gold made me. Ain't no homie them up and go. Oh, ching ching. Here come the stepper. I'm the lyrical gangster. Big up the crew in the area. Still living like that. Na 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 na. Yeah, man. So what it is? Na 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 na. Right? Here come the stepper. I'm the lyrical gangster. Big up all crew bow ya. Still living like that. Here come the stepper. I'm the lyrical danger. Big up the crew in the area. Still living like that. Here come the stepper. I'm the lyrical gangster. I'm a living, I'm a danger. Still living like that. Hey. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
All right, we're back, y'all. Okay, now, earlier we was talking about the pandemic, in my opinion, hoax. And we found out after they got this thing crunk up, we got people that took the vaccine dying from the vaccine. Think about that for a minute. Now here we go. Let's take a look at it. Let's look this lion dead in the face. Look at we see a lion. The lion say, they take my word for it. We got a vaccine for this pandemic. But before we get to the vaccine, nobody stopped and said, well, hold on. Before you do that, let me do an investigation to determine for myself whether or not it's even a pandemic. Oh, no, it's a pandemic. Of course, you can't not say that because we done invested millions and millions of dollars into telling the whole world that it's a pandemic. Isn't that something?
Joe Biden's plan that he announced at the State of the Union address the other day, I think it was on Friday, where he said that they're planning to construct a temporary pier off the port of Gaza, or off the coast of Gaza, supposedly to assist with the delivery of humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians. You want to somehow demonstrate to the world that you actually care about the victims of the genocide, that you are arming, you are funding, you are supporting and enabling in every conceivable way, and after you have vetoed repeatedly every ceasefire resolution that came to the United Nations that could have brought a halt to the mass murder that you and your client state are committing. Are you serious? Could you just not think of another way to insult the intelligence of the world? Are you seriously that out of touch that you think, you actually believe, that this completely cynical and empty gesture will convince anyone in the world that you have good intentions? You should be aware how many problems you have in your society, how much discontentment there is in your society, how much unhappiness, how much resentment, how much bitterness, how much misery. That's a powder keg. Your whole society is a powder keg. You should be aware of that, and know that when you're pushing too far, because then everything is going to blow up. All of the resentments, all of the grievances, all of the anger over everything is going to explode. You need to understand what a delicate situation you're in as a society when you have been so unjust for so long. Just inside of America, I'm talking about, not even their external victims, but their own victimized population, their own victimized society. There are so many people with a motive to burn the country down. There are so many people.
Okay, we back. Now, let's take a look now. We got Donald Trump saying, well, we're going to put up a wall. We're going to build a wall to keep people out. Okay? He's going out of office. Joe Biden came in and said, well, we going to turn our attention to something else. We're not going to be concerned about building the wall. Matter of fact, every policy that the Republicans put into effect, Joe Biden came back and got rid of all the policies. Boy, this is amazing to me. This is, it's like, you know, when you go to the circus and you see the clowns and the acrobats and the people, the animals jumping through hoops, and to me it's the same kind of thing. And the show been going on for 75 years, and we still sitting down debating with one another which one of the clowns is correct. You got something? Now when it comes to you got three things to deal with: reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's akin to what we call thinking. Okay? Now I know that's scary for a lot of people. Reading. You pull out a book on some people, it's like you done pull a pistol on. And I mean, this kind of business ain't funny, man. But nevertheless, when it comes to you as an individual and dealing with the man or woman in the mirror, you have to ask yourself the question, well, what am I going to do about me? What am I doing? I'm not sitting down waiting on a politician to pass some legislation for me to do better. It's just like when they had the student loan thing. Okay, you already in debt up to you, above your shoulders. But the president of the United States said he's working on a program of debt forgiveness. So what you do is say, well, I ain't got to worry about nothing. I'm going to just sit back, keep on being charged, and wait and see what the president do. Now, the president came up and said, okay, we got this thing in place, but it's only going to benefit certain people. If you owe X amount of dollars in debt, okay, we're going to forgive that. And if you owe this amount, we're going to forgive that. But what about all the other hundreds of thousands of people that don't fit that? They just left out. But because you said that you finna do something about a student loan, you had people actually sitting still after being hoodwinked, shafted, and bamboozled by you for 75 years, all of a sudden going to believe that you're going to do something right this time. What the heck are we dealing with here?
Your so-called civilization is toxic. You're gaslit, you're lied to, you're misled, you're miseducated, indoctrinated, and intellectually subjugated with shameless and relentless ferocity, morning, noon, and night. Sickness is health. Health is sickness. Conformity is freedom. Oligarchy is democracy. Despotism is justice. On and on. Your moral compass is a pinwheel where true north is Netflix and chill. Or whatever. Whatever will help numb your conscience from the contradictions and the hypocrisy and the degeneracy and the emptiness of your life. Because meaning and purpose and value have been robbed from you by your so-called civilization. Because you can barely find anything that you were taught to believe that your country stands for that isn't the complete opposite of what your country actually does.
Isn't that amazing? Think about that for a minute. Now, if any of this is wrong, please contact me and let me know. Make sure you got the correct information, verifiable information, to straighten me and this information that I'm putting out, straighten us out. This is not a one-sided thing. I mean, if what you are hearing here tonight is wrong, then just let me know it's wrong. I mean, we're in this boat with everybody else. So what are you going to do about you? What are you going to do about you? That's what I want to know. But anyway, I want to get down in here because we had this thing about the pandemic, and now we got this thing coming out. They accusing one another of presenting fake news. Boy, that was a big one. So let's take a look at the fake news. But before we do, let's take a quick commercial break, and when I come back, then we'll be ready to go, okay? Hold on a minute.
Hi, I'm Tarhaka. You know, there's a difference between what you believe and what you know for a fact and can prove. I live in the private and can prove it. I've exercised my freedom of right to travel and can prove it. I don't have a mortgage and can prove it. And much, much more. And so does many other people across this country and abroad who are secured party and creditors living in the private. Debt is a burden. It causes people a hard time in life. They can't live live in peace fast enough. Contact me at tarhakadebtelimination.org. You can call me and I'll answer the phone. Leave your email information on my website and get my free report. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Get out of debt. It's nothing but a burden. You can't move forward with that. That's a bunch of junk.
Okay, we're back. Now, once again, let me ask you something. Now, in your opinion, how devastating, in your personal opinion, do you think fake news is? How bad is that? For somebody to be in a position to lead the public to believe that their job is to enlighten you on a daily basis, but they are giving you fraud on a daily basis. And we're sitting here acting like it's brand new. When it's been going on for 400 years, I'm sorry to have to tell you that, but it ain't brand new. This is kind of stuff here. It's been going on for years and years and years. This ain't no new stuff. Now they start getting us fake news. As you know, prior to fake news coming out in the 21st century, everything that you heard that somebody broadcast to you was absolutely correct and authentic. Think about that for a minute. Just think about it. Okay, you got the United States and what we call the government. Okay? That's on the left hand. But on the right hand, we got this thing called the mafia. Now, in my personal opinion, based on what I done seen out of all the years that I've been on this planet, it pretty much, both of them pretty much operate the same way. Okay, we're going to take the mafia. The mafia say the mafia does not exist, and we will kill any SOB that say it does. our job is corruption. We don't deal with none of this education stuff you got going. We don't deal with none of that. We deal with lying, stealing, gambling, prostitution, vice, abduction, conspiracy, fraud. I think some of us are yesterday. All this right here. Yeah, I can go out, kill somebody, but then I go down the street and walk in the church and get in the confession booth and tell a man to sit behind the wall in the confession booth, everything that I've done, he can say, well, look, you forgiven, Hail Mary, and all that is over with. Okay. Now, on the other hand, we got the United States of America. Okay. Now, you vote all your leaders in the office. But once they get in there, they serve everybody among themselves but you. They might throw a penny down there and you fight over that, but for the most part, you get absolutely nothing. Nobody shares the wealth with you. We're giving other countries millions and millions and millions of dollars, but you homeless, you scuffling trying to get a job, you paying to go to school, you try to get an education and failing to realize that the powers that be cannot afford to educate you, because in order for you to get an education, what that means is you are learning how to handle power. You ain't asking for freedom, justice, and equality in America. Once you get an education, you go take it. So we cannot afford to educate you, but we can give you the illusion that you're being educated and give you a college degree of what you think is something of value, which means absolutely nothing. And the reason I'm saying that because I was downtown one day, and I decided to go into this hamburger joint. And when I went in there, there was this tall Caucasian woman, and she was wiping the counter off. And I said, well, look, I have a hamburger, fries, and a Coke. And she said, okay. And she was mumbling and grumbling. I said, are you all right? No, I ain't all right. Say, I went to school, I have a college degree, and now I'm down in here slinging hamburgers. She was 38 hot. But prior to her saying that, it had never dawned on me that this kind of situation was going on. It hadn't dawned on me about this kind of stuff. But nevertheless, let's deal with this fake news business, and let's see whether or not any of this stuff is real.
Order silver.
Really? Silver is the weapon against coronavirus?
On other strains of the coronavirus and has been able to eliminate it within 12 hours.
Jim Bakker, the televangelist, has now been sued for selling these fake coronavirus cures. Fraudsters are wasting no time to make money from your fear. The hoax likely originated from a widespread belief in silver's antibacterial properties. Some toothbrush brands have hyped the metal too in order to boost sales, but scientists agree silver has no effect against the coronavirus. In fact, exposure to colloidal silver can be toxic. Times of crisis are always great times for fake news and propaganda. And the more ridiculous the claims, it seems, the more traction they gain on social media. Be it tips like drinking alcohol to kill the virus and fight the disease, as tempting as it may sound for some, it isn't. Or religious claims that corona was a punishment dished out by God or Mother Nature. Our team from DW Science has put together a selection of some of the most outrageous fake news about COVID-19.
Whatever you do, don't try this at home. This clip, widely shared on WhatsApp, is just one example of the many coronavirus-related stories circulating online. The problem, as the disease continues to spread, fake news is going viral too. In India, a picture purporting to show an Italian boy taking his life after all his family members died from coronavirus went viral. But a fact check revealed that the footage actually shows the suicide of a woman before the outbreak. And this photo doesn't show dead bodies on the streets of Italy. It's actually an art installation in Germany. Also doing the rounds, conspiracy theories. Among them, that a South Korean series forecast the coronavirus outbreak back in 2018. Just one of many false stories describing the pandemic as a premeditated event. Platforms like Facebook are rife breeding grounds for the spread of fake news. The social networking giant is among several companies pledging to take stronger action to prevent the spread of misinformation. Others, too, are doing their bit to make sure people are getting the right information about corona. A service called Africa Check recently had to rebuff a South African mayor's claim that a vaccine against coronavirus had been developed.
Now, while much of Asia seems just over the hill and most of Europe is in mid-battle against COVID-19, Africa is bracing for impact. And fake news is not helping societies there to prepare for the onslaught. Let's bring in Vincent Ngeti. He's Deputy Kenya Editor at Africa Check and joins us from Nairobi. Vincent, how much of a problem is corona fake news in African countries right now?
Thanks for having me. Coronavirus misinformation is a big problem. And the reason is that the more people believe misinformation, then they will not follow the instructions. They're not going to wash their hands. They won't practice social distancing. And they will not stay at home. So these things mean that if they don't pay attention, the virus spreads more. And on top of that, you have people trying certain fake cures or medicines that have been proven not to work. We've seen in Nigeria, for example, that people have been poisoned by chloroquine because they heard it could work.
Vincent, what's the weirdest piece of fake news you've come across so far?
Well, the weirdest I have come across is that if you take some orange peels and you boil them and you inhale the steam, you can cure coronavirus. And we know that's not true because your body temperature, internal body temperature never really changes. All you end up doing is burning your nose.
Why on earth are people actually believing this kind of stuff?
Well, people believe misinformation, particularly about health, because it ties into their fears. People are afraid of diseases that are difficult to cure, and so this gives them hope. And when you give them hope, they will try these fake cures, they will buy medicines, fake medicines, if they have to. You should notice that really we don't see a lot of fake news about a disease like malaria because we all knew it's curable and the medicine is clearly accessible.
Do people across Africa generally trust their governments to take the right measures, or falls that misinformation on fertile ground?
People are more or less trustful of their governments, and the reason they are is because they know that governments really can do the most to protect them. What we have seen is a bit of dissatisfaction with the measures that are being taken. So, for example, in Kenya, we know that, for example, the number of tests have been rising, but there's a concern that they're not enough. And also the fact that a lot of people live in an informal economy in Kenya, so they have to go out every day and earn money. And it's very difficult to tell people like that to stay at home and self-isolate unless you're providing them with food or money so that they can stay inside.
Who benefits from these fake news?
A number of people benefit. There are people who want to grow their influence online, and they'll spread anything that is fake, whether it's about coronavirus or politics, it doesn't matter. Then there are people who want to actually make a business selling fake cures so that you can actually spend your money to buy a fake cure or to do things that are not true. For example, the orange peel water. And then finally, you've got people who want to drive political agendas, so they're going to capitalize on people's fears to spread these stories, and that way spread the agenda that probably the system is wrong and therefore you should follow me because I have the solution. So there are people doing it digitally online. They have technological reasons, others have commercial reasons, and some have political reasons.
Vincent Ngeti, the Deputy Kenya Editor at Africa Check, thank you very much for joining us from Nairobi today. Today, our science correspondent Derek Williams will deal with some of the most virulent fake news stories and false claims about the coronavirus.
Was this virus genetically modified to be used as a biological weapon?
This was one of those conspiracy theories that was bound to pop up in the midst of a global pandemic, right? I mean, there have been too many books and movies with that as a plot line. But a team of researchers that studied the genetic makeup of the virus recently published some compelling arguments for why it wasn't engineered but must have naturally evolved. First, they said, SARS-CoV-2 most closely resembles coronaviruses found in bats that don't cause disease in humans. And of course, any evil scientist trying to build a superbug would have started with one that's already been proven to make us sick. Second, in our computer models, the changes to the SARS-CoV-2 genetic sequence that allowed it to start infecting us just don't look like they should work very well. They aren't mutations that any bioengineer would have chosen if they were trying to build a superbug, because the models would have said they don't really work. So no, the coronavirus was not designed by humans.
Can supplements like fish oil, zinc, or vitamins help?
Supplements are an area of nutrition where there's very little consensus in the scientific community under ordinary circumstances, much less in the midst of a pandemic. The idea that you can somehow boost your immune system, I mean, what does that mean anyway? The answer to this question is a resounding no. The only thing that we currently think will prevent you from catching the virus is if you've had it already and developed antibodies that will prevent you from getting it again. I'm not saying you should stop taking your fish oil or your vitamins, just don't expect them to keep you from catching COVID-19.
There is a rumor that loss of smell is a sign of a severe case of COVID-19. Can we hear more about that?
A recent large-scale study in Britain that collected data from hundreds of thousands of people self-reporting on an app showed that from those who eventually tested positive for the disease, around 60% had that symptom to a greater or lesser extent. That certainly sounds pretty convincing. The only problem is that losing the sense of smell or taste is also closely associated with other respiratory infections. It's a lot more common than you might think. That's why, as of this morning at least, the WHO was still reviewing the issue and hadn't yet decided to add the loss of smell or taste to the official list of symptoms of coronavirus infection. But that could very well happen in the coming days if there's enough evidence to support it.
Okay, there you have it. All right. First of all, I've already told you what a pandemic was. I already told you what we did when they came out and said it was a pandemic. We called on the brothers all across the country. We called funeral directors, funeral homes, went into the hospitals, and others right here. All this was instead of being broadcasted by people calling themselves journalists and news anchors. You see, all the people who they say died across the country They died on TV. But we did have planes in the sky putting out chemtrails. This stuff comes down and you inhaling and breathing that. That's in your lungs. And depending on your diet and whether or not your immune system is strong, you can succumb to that. But they never came and told you what and why are the planes dispensing these chemtrails. When a jet goes across the sky, it lets smoke out the back and then smoke disappears, okay? But now, we just got jets going across the sky. They leaving a trail of what we think is smoke, and it sits in the air, and then it expands and expands and expands, and then, but it's falling down to the earth. It's getting on your house, getting on your car, getting on your skin, getting on your flowers, getting on your plants, your food, your crops, and all this stuff. So now it's safe for us to say, oh, we're in a pandemic. I mean, go outside the house early in the morning and look up. Look up in the sky. And then call the news media and ask them, what's that? And why you're not giving us a total and complete breakdown on that. You telling us about everything but that. What's that? You see. Now, I put together, I had a video of when it first started, 25 questions for your friends and family members who believe that we are in a pandemic. I tried to upload it on YouTube. YouTube told me if you do that again, we're going to close your account. You're harming people. But wait a minute. Do you mean to tell me that I got 25 questions to ask my own friends and family members who believe that we're in a pandemic? 25 questions to ask them, and you're going to destroy me for even asking these questions? This is the most amazing thing that I've ever seen. That let me know right then and there, you're up to something, soldier. In my personal opinion, before it's all over with, I think the United States of America is going to be indicted by the whole world with all this kind of crap that's going on. And I think that we live in a toxic society, and we are all dealing with trauma. I think we're in a toxic civilization. I really do. Let's see.
Your so-called civilization is toxic. You're gaslit, you're lied to, you're misled, you're miseducated, indoctrinated, and intellectually subjugated with shameless and relentless ferocity, morning, noon, and night. Sickness is health. Health is sickness. Conformity is freedom. Oligarchy is democracy. Despotism is justice. On and on. Your moral compass is a pinwheel where true north is Netflix and chill. Or whatever. Whatever will help numb your conscience from the contradictions and the hypocrisy and the degeneracy and the emptiness of your life. Because meaning and purpose and value have been robbed from you by your so-called civilization. Because you can barely find anything that you were taught to believe that your country stands for that isn't the complete opposite of what your country actually does.
Wow. Man, that is amazing. Now, maybe, just maybe now, maybe what he said is not true. If you think that what he just said is not true, when you go over there to YouTube, because I'm going to put this in up there on YouTube. When you get over there, go ahead and click on the little, right there on the face of the video, you'll see a little red button in the right-hand corner down there. Go ahead and subscribe And you can also click like or don't like, or you can comment. And in the comment, just let me know, brother, what you were saying is absolutely not true. And put your contact information in there, so your email, I can contact you, and you can get your facts together and put it on the table, and then we'll go over your facts. But make sure you got facts. Don't come trying to tell me nothing about what you believe off the top of your head. We just want to deal with the facts. There's nothing but the facts. I don't hear nothing but the facts. Just show me the facts. Give me the evidence. That's all I want. Just give me the evidence. You call me, don't call me with no junk, man. Don't call me with nothing. What somebody told you a long time ago. Just give me the facts. Okay? I think that's fair enough. Now, when it comes to, just like I was explaining to you earlier about your freedom right to travel and all of this stuff right here, you want to be, because see, you're dealing with wordsmith. You know what a wordsmith is? This is an individual who is a master of words. When a policeman pulls you over, he says certain things to you that he's rehearsed over and over and over and over again. But most of us, we don't rehearse nothing. We just react. He asked me, well, do you know why I stopped you? Well, probably, you're trying to get me to opt into a contract. I see flashes like there's no need to party, so it has to be some type of robbery or some type of extortion or something like that. That's the only thing I can think of. And of course, when you say stuff like that, that's so okay. It took me. They said, well, he's one of them sovereign citizens. Boy, that'd be so funny to me. I said, man, how can I be a king and a servant at the same time? There's no such thing as a sovereign citizen. I said, I'm a citizen for the state republic. I said, well, and by the way, are you, from where on earth are you indigenous? I don't have to answer that. I said, this is getting, I need to see driver's license. Well, I only put in these driver's license somebody operating commerce. I'm not operating commerce. There's no sign on me. I'm just traveling. Now, if you want to write me a citation, or if you want to take me to jail, it's okay, man. You go ahead and deal with that. And you and I will be joined at the hip for the next 5 years. I promise. But anyway, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and doing an investigation on what you can do and what you can't do. See, there's a difference between the living and the dead. There's a difference between corporate fiction and a living, breathing man. Which one you gonna be? I mean, how long are you gonna keep answering to the wrong thing? How long? Somebody say, well, are you so and so and so and so and so? Or do you understand what I've just said to you? No, I do not understand. I don't stand under no authority that you claim to represent. I don't understand. So I don't. Okay. Let's go over this in one more time. One more time. We'll do this one more time. What is a pandemic? What is that?
The First World War was among the deadliest conflicts in history and killed more than 20 million people. But an outbreak of flu that began as the war ended turned out to be far more destructive.
It was known as the Spanish influenza and infected 1 in 3 humans on Earth. It was the worst pandemic in modern history and claimed the lives of between 50 and 100 million people.
Now, as a new strain of coronavirus spreads across the world, when does a disease become a pandemic? And if it does, what happens next?
Disease experts use the term pandemic when a new infection spreads to multiple countries and continents at the same time, affecting many people. That's different from another term, epidemic, which describes an infection outbreak that's larger than usual but stays confined to a single location or region.
So, when does a disease officially become a pandemic?
The World Health Organization is the body that decides when an infectious disease formally becomes a pandemic, but that choice is not always black and white. The group's Director General says the WHO assesses whether to use the word pandemic by evaluating 3 things. First is the geographical spread of the virus. Second is the severity of the disease caused by the virus. And lastly, the societal impact of the disease. A disease is more likely to become a pandemic if it is caused by a new strain of a virus, as is the case with coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19. The ease with which it infects people and spreads from person to person also play a role in the designation. Past pandemic outbreaks have typically originated from animal viruses before crossing over to humans. These can spread rapidly around the world because people do not have the immunity needed to fight the new infection. COVID-19 was declared a pandemic in March 2020, the 6th pandemic declared in about a century. The 1918 Spanish flu was easily the deadliest flu pandemic of the 20th century, killing tens of millions of people. The Asian flu outbreak followed in 1957, killing roughly 1.1 million people around the world. Thankfully, scientists were able to develop a vaccine quickly, effectively containing its spread. Another influenza outbreak, the Hong Kong flu, started to spread from China in 1968. It was caused by a compound virus which combined the Asian virus from 10 years earlier with a form of bird flu. It killed around 1 million people, most of them older than 65. HIV, which was first identified as the virus behind AIDS in 1983, was also considered a pandemic. The human immunodeficiency virus severely damages the cells in your immune system and weakens your ability to fight everyday infections and disease. In the past 40 years, it's killed 35 million people worldwide, about half of the people who were infected by the virus. Then in 2009, a new outbreak, initially called the swine flu, was named a pandemic. It infected nearly 61 million people, and experts estimate it killed up to 575,000 people in a single year. The WHO declared the pandemic over in August 2010, but the virus has continued to circulate as a seasonal flu ever since.
In recent years, the WHO has changed how it decides whether an outbreak constitutes a pandemic, following criticism that the threat of the 2009 swine flu had been exaggerated.
Many governments stockpiled vaccines which ultimately went unused, while pharmaceutical companies profited from the ensuing panic. The disease turned out to be milder than was originally thought. Since then, the WHO has released a guide to manage flu pandemics at a national and international level. According to its pandemic preparedness plan, national governments are required to follow specific protocols if a pandemic is declared to prevent or reduce the spread of a virus. For instance, authorities at a regional and local level must fully mobilize health systems, hospitals and medical workers. In addition, healthcare providers must plan for a surge in patients and offer protective equipment to their workforce. Governments must also limit social interaction, initiate quarantine measures and enforce isolation procedures. Upgrading a disease to a pandemic outbreak also has psychological implications for how we think about a disaster. According to the WHO, using the word pandemic carelessly has no tangible benefit, but it does have significant risk in terms of amplifying unnecessary and unjustified fear and stigma. 6 months before the latest coronavirus outbreak, a WHO report noted that many countries still lack a national pandemic influenza preparedness plan.
So, what are the economic costs of a pandemic?
A previous coronavirus strain called SARS, which was detected in 2002, wasn't widespread enough to become a pandemic. While it only infected more than 8,000 people, it still cost the global economy more than $50 billion in 2003.
You see, advances in medicine, communication and technology have brought mortality rates down, but greater trade flows and cheaper air travel has seen the world economy become ever more interconnected, and that causes the cost of a pandemic to rise.
A report now estimates that a pandemic will cost $570 billion a year. That represents 0.7% of the world's total income. A pandemic can overwhelm global health systems. It can also force infected individuals to avoid the office or work less productively. The fear of infection spread forces people to stay apart, and that can be even more debilitating, shutting down schools, businesses, and public services. Insurance companies must also watch developments closely. A pandemic can mean more travel claims, more hospital claims, and choke up global supply chains. The impact on corporate earnings can then cascade into financial markets all around the world. Hi guys, thanks for watching our video. If you'd like to see more of our content, then you can check out these videos. And remember, don't forget to subscribe.
Okay, we're back. Now, what just happened? We got somebody broadcasting to us about something that happened, and that's the way it is, and that's what happened to these, how many people died as a result of this, that, and the other. Okay. Now, we know, we got sense enough to know, at least we should have, there is no such thing as a coincidence. Okay, you remember a while back when we had the AIDS epidemic. Remember that? Do you remember? All of a sudden now, nobody has the AIDS. We have a brand new thing that's in the news. But what happened to the AIDS epidemic? What happened to all of the medicine that the United States is supposed to have stacked up against the AIDS epidemic? After you stop talking about the AIDS epidemic, did you take all of the medicine that you had invested in and throw it away because the AIDS epidemic came along? Or did you put it somewhere so in case another disease come up, you can take some of that and put it in there and use it as a cure? I look at it this way, man. Okay. If you have been prescribed medication for an ailment, okay, doctor say I'm going to write you a prescription. You go get the prescription, you follow the prescription, and you take the medicine that they made in a laboratory somewhere. Okay, that's it. You're supposed to be made whole. But then, stuff don't go right. So you're going to have to take it back and get your prescription refilled. Okay, well, if it was any good in the first place, why would you need to have it refilled? That don't make no sense to me. Now, if anybody got something different, because I know a lot of people say, well, you know, when I take these pills, it sort of eases the pain. But I have been to people's homes and opened a medicine cabinet full of brown pill bottles, all these different medications all over the house. And then they come and tell me, well, the doctor diagnosed me with such and such a thing. Okay, well, before you tell me about something, somebody told you about your body. What did you do an investigation on to find out about your own body? And what have you done to do something about your own body? What part of thinking did you do is what I want to know. You hold on a minute. We're going to take another little quick break and go to another little commercial break, and we'll be right back. Hold on a minute.
Today in September 2023, the United States is bringing up the student loan thing again, just like I said they would in 2022. And a lot of people took no action back then. They advertised they would give you a loan to go to school, but you don't receive a check. But anyway, you go for it. The next thing you know, you get a bill in the mail for a loan they said they gave you. And guess what? It has interest attached to it. And as time goes on, it gets bigger and bigger because it was never meant to be paid off. It was designed for you to pay for the rest of your natural life. Get my free report. Go to TarhakaDebtElimination.org. That's TarhakaDebtElimination.org. Become a creditor instead of a debtor. Get in the private. Get out of the public. Peace.
everybody. Now, we're going down to the close of the broadcast, and I just want you to remember my main point of what I've been trying to tell you. You got three things to be involved in: reading, writing, and arithmetic. That should contribute to your thinking. When you do the research yourself, you're able to deduct and come to a conclusion based on your research. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now, they got a lot of valuable information that's out there on the social networks and stuff. It's there. But you're going to have to be able to discern and to define some things for yourself. And in this life, what we're dealing with, most of the United States operates on contract. And what they're trying to do now is they're trying to make stuff digital where you won't be able to put your position in about nothing. You go online, you follow our instructions, press the button here, press the button there. There's no room for you to have a difference of an opinion. You just follow the rules and regulations and guidelines that's laid out for you. No. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to position ourselves into the most powerful position that we could possibly be in as individuals. That's what we're going to have to do. They got this thing now where they're saying, well, we're trying to move to the digital currency. But we still got people that are behind out there. You got folks that's still standing out in front of people's establishment and asking strangers for $1 or 50 cents or can you give me this, that, and that. What's going to happen to these people? No thinking involved. We ain't doing nothing. We just out of here. I don't know what kind of disease I got. I don't know what kind of disease the next man got. I'm just going through the motion because somebody else told me that there's diseases. I haven't done any research on my own, so therefore I'm supposed to go along with whatever is being told to me. When it comes to the vets, who controls the Veterans Administration? Now we know the IRS is a private company. We know that. And you got a whole lot of branches of the United States government, what they're calling a government. These are private institutions. Okay, we got the international bankers, we got the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, we got the United Nations, we got all of this structure, and then we got the wordsmiths. We can't forget about the wordsmiths, okay? They're there. And if you ain't careful, you mess around and run into one of them. You know what I mean? You know, wordsmith, he's able to play what's called word games with you. And so what I'm going to do is run a little short take and kind of show you what I'm talking about. Hold on a minute.
I'll give you an easy example, capitalism. And the idea of capitalism is to pursue wealth and prosperity, free markets and so on. Well, the actual rule is that you're supposed to be dedicated to my wealth and my prosperity, the employer, the boss, the company. So you're actually, in capitalism, required to subordinate your wealth and your prosperity to mine. This is capitalism in a nutshell. This then became the mentality of colonization. You, your people, your country, Africa, Asia, Latin America, wherever, your function in life is to make me richer. And that's called me civilizing you. If you're not devoted to my prosperity, then you're primitive and problematic. But that's not what they'll say, because the lies are endless. No, we have to look at the West, look at the world from our vantage point, from our perspective, our paradigm, our understanding, and in our language, according to our terms and our definitions.
How about that? Now, if that's wrong now, let me know. All you got to do is, I'm going to convert this video tonight while I'm up, because the original broadcast didn't come on. They keep calling me and telling me about they fixing this, that, and the other. But what I'm going to do is just go and get on another platform. Give me my money back. I'm finna dip. And once I do get back on the radio, I'll encourage everybody else to never go to Blog Talk Radio again. Don't deal with these people. Don't do business with them. Don't do it. I'm going to give them the complete and total breakdown on the whole nine. Okay? All right. That's what's going to happen. Hold on one more second.
Once again, don't wait until it's too late. Hi, I'm Tarhaka. Get out of debt now. Use what you already have at your disposal. Try living in the private for the first time in your life. Go to TarhakaDebtElimination.org. What are you going to do when the economy collapses? What are you going to do when life in the public becomes so unbearable you don't think you can survive? There is something you can do now. Gain the benefit now of using the private banking and credit available to you. Avoid the loss of your hard-earned cash, which are debt notes. Go to TarhakaDebtElimination.org. Request my free report by filling out the Contact Us form, and I will rush the report to your email box. Act now. We still have a small amount of time. TarhakaDebtElimination.org.
Okay, get out the public, get in the private, start doing things differently, start looking at this situation that we're all involved in from a whole different perspective. See, the way I see it, and I mean, it's easy for me because I've been doing it a long time, because you do the same thing too. I'm not doing anything that you can't do. You can stop at the end of the streets. You should be able to, you don't argue with nobody, or, none of this mess here. You should be able to just go straight home. They say, well, we're going to write you a ticket for this, that, and okay, all right, get here. We need you to sign in. I ain't signing shit. Excuse me. And get him, and I'm take it home, and I'll go ahead and get rid of that within 72 hours. You got a 72-hour rule. Those are the rules. Get rid of that within 72 hours. Keep on going. Go straight on. Whatever problem you got, bring up the computer. Go ahead on and craft you out a document with your stuff in it. Ends up private with all the correct stuff that you got. From the information that you get from us, we'll give it to you. You're not left alone with this stuff, because what we do is once you get this, we're available to you. If you got any questions, we're able to guide you along and help you along. So, in my opinion, in today's society, you need that. Instead of being a victim all the time. And I ain't trying to hear none of that. Because in my personal opinion, there's no excuse. I've been at this right here since 2012, telling you this, that, and the other. But you want to wait till you're back up against the wall. You don't have your priorities arranged properly. And so now you're whining about this, that, and the third. Well, we want to get rid of that. We want to stop doing that stuff. But anyway, let's take a look at the American word game again. One more time.
I'll give you an easy example. Capitalism. And the idea of capitalism is to pursue wealth and prosperity, free markets and so on. Well, the actual rule is that you're supposed to be dedicated to my wealth and my prosperity, the employer, the boss, the company. So you're actually, in capitalism, required to subordinate your wealth and your prosperity to mine. This is capitalism in a nutshell. This then became the mentality of colonization. You, your people, your country, Africa, Asia, Latin America, wherever, your function in life is to make me richer. And that's called me civilizing you. If you're not devoted to my prosperity, then you're primitive and problematic. But that's not what they'll say, because the lies are endless. No, we have to look at the West, look at the world from our vantage point, from our perspective, our paradigm, our understanding, and in our language, according to our terms and our definitions.
You cannot do that without reading, writing, and arithmetic. In my personal opinion, because I'm in agreement with the gentleman that's speaking, history is going to indict the United States of America. History will indict. It will. Let's go. Let's take another look.
I'm telling you, the next 50 years are going to be drastically different than the last 50 years. And no one is even going to believe 50 years from now that America and Europe were ever treated like the center of the world. People are going to shake their heads in disbelief. that something as repugnant and as stupid as Zionism was ever taken seriously and was ever allowed to wreak havoc on the Middle East. No one's going to be able to wrap their heads around the fact that you people presided over such a deranged global order that it made the most resource-rich and most important countries on the planet the poorest and most oppressed countries in the world. That's your system. And you have the gall to call it civilized. You have the gall to call yourselves advocates of justice and fairness and equality and human rights and so on. I'm telling you, in 50 years, your whole era is going to be universally regarded as a disgrace of history. And the story of America is going to be nothing but a cautionary tale for the nations of the world about how horrifically wrong a country can be.
The Western Empire is not spreading liberalism. They are crushing liberty, freedom, democracy everywhere they go. The United States has special ops forces, meaning intelligence and military operations, in more countries than they have embassies. The U.S. has carried out at least 469 military interventions since 1798, but more than half of those have been carried out in just the last 30 years. They are spreading neoliberalism, not liberalism. And these two ideologies couldn't be more different. And they're not spreading it by discourse and dialogue in the so-called marketplace of ideas. They're spreading it through force and violence on a scale unparalleled in human history.
And you can go back as far as you want, or as recently as you want. If you want to go as far as Nagasaki, Hiroshima, you can go there. If you want to go to slavery, you can go there. If you want to go to the genocide of the Native Americans, you can go there. And if you want to just talk more recently, you can talk about Iraq. You can talk about Afghanistan. You can talk about Syria. You can talk about Yemen. You can talk about drone attacks in Pakistan. You can talk about bombing the pharmaceutical factory in Sudan. And that's just against us. Forget about talking about Latin America in the 1970s, 1980s, and now.
They're spreading it through military invasion, occupation, and intimidation, and through economic sabotage, bullying, and debt slavery. The Muslim world and the entire global South see it. They know it. They experience it. They are suffering from it. Nobody is fooled by the propaganda. The West is not teaching the world, certainly not the Muslim world, about the value of individual liberty or the sacredness of the individual or about the rule of law or any of the other principles that are associated with liberalism. We have to fight the West in order to establish these principles in our societies. And these are principles that we understood centuries before the Enlightenment. You must have had your head buried in the amber waves of grain if you actually imagine that the West invented or discovered the concept of individual rights and civil liberties and freedom. The people in the West are allowed to do as they please. They're allowed to fornicate, they're allowed to drink, they're allowed to commit sodomy, they're allowed to play games about what gender is, they're allowed to indulge in absolute moral relativism, precisely because they are inconsequential to those in power. Your only role in the society is to contribute to corporate profits, to be a consumer and to be a worker. That's all. Therefore, anything else you want to do with your life doesn't matter to anyone who matters. Liberalism is a euphemism for the complete irrelevance of the morality, the decency, or the refinement of the population, because you don't matter. If your immorality and your indecency is profitable, it's approved. Nobody cares about you being a good person because you don't have any power. And what you call liberalism, which is actually just the complete indifference of power to the lives of the population, yes, this has wrought havoc on the societies. And this havoc is profitable. And it helps to consolidate the power of those who possess power because the population remains marginalized, distracted, and confused, and entertained, and engaged in futile activities. The power of the West has not been achieved by virtue or by the superiority of their ideas. It has been achieved through brutal, savage violence, both military and economic.
It doesn't finish the atrocities committed by the United States and endlessly defended until now, defended by the government and justified by the government, justified by the media, justified by pundits, justified by analysts, justified by think tanks. There's no conscience there. Don't you feel bad about what you did? Why don't you have to explain to us that those actions don't represent your belief system? The same way that we have to explain to you when renegade criminals perform acts of terror, we have to explain to you that those actions do not represent our belief system. But you never have to explain to us, to assure us
that violence and atrocities and war crimes, that's not what America stands for. That's not what the West stands for. That's not what liberal values means. That's a misrepresentation. And you can't explain it that way because the representatives of liberal democracy, the representatives of the West, the representatives of America, they're the ones who are performing those actions. Those aren't the actions of renegade criminals. This is the actions of the government. This is the difference between civilized people and savage people. This is the difference between a normal, healthy human being and a psychopath. That's the difference between the Muslim world and the West.
Okay, we're back. Now, you remember earlier, I told you on one side, we had the mafia. On the other side, we have the United States. Now, notice I didn't say the United States of America. I say the United States. So my question would be to you, what is the difference in your personal opinion? What's the difference? Because they're both doing the same thing. So what's the difference? Now, if you can explain to me a difference, when I put this video up on YouTube, go ahead and click on the subscribe button and thumbs up, thumbs down if this information is incorrect, and state your comment. And if you want to discuss this stuff, you get your facts together, I get mad. I just presented my position here this evening, and you was able to listen to it, and you can form an opinion and come to a conclusion about what you think about what I just said and what the gentleman just said from the plugs that I ran. Now, I'm in this, I got to stop calling it a country. I'm on this land as an absolute indigenous individual, living, breathing man. I'm on this land. And I was born this way, at certain blood types. I'm responsible for myself, my condition, my thoughts, what I do, how I interact with other people and all that stuff. I'm responsible for that. I don't need anybody else to dictate. Hold on a minute. I got somebody with the hand raised. We only have 7 minutes. 407, come on in.
Yeah, this is Nathan in Orlando. I was just listening to your show. I want to throw something out. If you would, write this down, and I think it might fall into line with what I heard here recently on your show. Executive Order 12803. 12803. Write that down and look at that later on, and I think it'll be another button that brings everything you're saying together.
Okay, Nathan. Well, do you think I done missed the mark, or what you think? You think I'm on it?
I know this much. I'll say this. No matter which party you're in, they're talking to our hearts, not our minds. And when we look back on it, we're going to say, and well, we won't, the next generation will be saying, what did we have? I was thinking of something along the lines of, at one time the blacks were oppressed, and then nobody noticed this, but then when the policy started going over towards the white people in the 60s, then a lot of stuff fell apart with the family being broken up and abortions for young people because, they were just lonely and brokenhearted, and you give them, whisper I love you, and they give you the keys to everything, and that pretty much wiped out a big part of the functioning white population. So we're all in this thing together, But if you would, look at that executive order. It was George H. Daddy Bush in 1992. Okay. And you know what? We need to see what's going on, because while we think we're fighting each other to save America, we're just cooperating with it. You know, there's something bigger that's beyond us.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely correct. I have to agree with you, Nathan, on that. But I'm just trying to shake some of these folks up out of complacency and get them back to reading, writing, and arithmetic and all this stuff. That's my aim for today. The show's supposed to broadcast at 7, but technical difficulties, and I'm on it by myself. My guest ain't here. And but anyway, I appreciate you calling in, man, and I'm going to go ahead and close this thing on out. I'm going to look it up. I got it wrote down.
Thank you for making... Okay. Thank you for making people think.
Okay. You're welcome, man. Executive Order 128303. All right. Take care, man. All right. That was Nathan called in to give us a little bit of information. But anyway, I've been your host, Tarhaka Amana El Bay, and tonight, I hope y'all got something out of the broadcast, but I'm going to go ahead and close it down. Y'all have a good evening, okay?
Love
truck drivers. Without them, our economy would stop. They're constantly racing against time, struggling against exhaustion, and being put under enormous pressure from their bosses, the big trucking companies. This can be a major reason for an accident. Discovering who's at fault can be difficult. We can help. Put our big truck experience to work for you. Call Farah and Farah, Jacksonville.
Hi, I'm Chuck Farah. We know how important it is for you to have a vehicle after you've been injured in a car accident. So when we represent you for your personal injury claim, we'll help you get a rental car from the insurance company while your car is being repaired. And we'll provide this service at no additional fee. If you're hurt and you've got no car, let my team go to work for you. Farah and Farah, protecting you and your family. Call us at 396-5555 or go to farahandfarah.com. Jacksonville.